The conference room was cold in that sterile way only office buildings can achieve. I was in the middle of a quarterly audit presentation, the kind that matters, the kind that determines whether you make partner, when my phone lit up on the table in front of me. My mother's name appeared on the screen. I almost didn't look. You don't check personal messages during a client presentation. But something in the timing felt wrong. Mom didn't call during work hours. She texted about recipes and family group chats. She didn't interrupt. I glanced down. We found a new partner. We don't need your negativity anymore. We're cutting ties. That was it. No explanation. No warning. No conversation. Just 5 sentences that landed like an eviction notice, served via text while I was in the middle of explaining cash flow discrepancies to a room full of people who paid 6 figures to hear me talk about risk. I set the phone down. I didn't react. The client was still talking. My colleague was still presenting numbers on the screen behind me. The world hadn't stopped. Only my family had. I finished the presentation. I took the questions. I smiled when appropriate. I was a professional. I had been trained my entire life to keep the facade intact, and I wasn't about to break it now. But as I walked back to my office afterward, I felt something shift inside me. Not sadness. Not anger. Just the strange clarity you get when you finally see someone for what they actually are. My family owned a real estate flip business. Or rather, they owned the debt of one. I had co-signed the commercial line of credit 3 years ago, $250,000, because they had convinced me it was for the family legacy. My father had placed his hand on my shoulder that day at the bank. He told the loan officer I was the brains of the operation. My mother had squeezed my hand and whispered that I was saving them. So I signed. And for 3 years I paid for their mistakes. I covered interest payments when the business didn't generate enough cash flow. I reconciled their messy books. I fixed their tax returns when they tried to deduct vacations as business expenses. I was their silent investor, their insurance policy, their safety net. And this morning they decided they didn't need the safety net anymore. I closed my office door. I didn't slam it. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and pulled up the family business accounts, the ones I managed, the ones I could still access. The transactions told a story my family didn't want me reading. Elizabeth's influencer trips to Tulum were classified as marketing expenses. The $58,000 luxury SUV lease for my father was charged to the company card. My mother's monthly $3,500 withdrawal had a vague label. Operating expenses. But operating expenses didn't usually go to personal bank accounts. They thought they were clever. They thought finding a new investor meant they didn't need my oversight anymore. They thought I was just a buzzkill getting in the way of their success. They forgot one crucial thing. I was a forensic accountant. I hunted fraud for a living. And I was the guarantor on their commercial line of credit. I opened the bank portal. The $250,000 line was right there, still active, still accessible. All I had to do was log in as the guarantor. For a moment I just looked at it. 3 years of payments. 3 years of canceled vacations with Jose, my fiancé. 3 years of explaining to him why we couldn't move forward with our own plans because his future wife was busy salvaging her parents' sinking ship. I thought about every moment I'd asked for something, a weekend trip, dinner out, help with a project, and had to cancel because there was another crisis, another overdraft, another emergency. I navigated to the Account Management tab. The cursor hovered over the freeze option. 1 click. That's all it would take. I thought about the text message. We don't need your negativity anymore. Not we don't need your help. Not we're moving in a new direction. Negativity. As if my entire existence had been reduced to an inconvenient mood. I clicked. A confirmation window appeared. Are you sure? I was sure. Clicked yes. The screen refreshed. Request pending. Account frozen. I sat back in my chair and waited for the guilt to arrive. I'd been trained my whole life to feel guilty for disappointing people. But what came instead was something I didn't expect. Lightness. It was like setting down a backpack I'd been carrying since I was 22. Not the weight of money or responsibility, I understood those. But the weight of trying to earn approval from people who saw me as a tool, not a daughter. The account was frozen. No more withdrawals. No more transfers. No more tapping the credit line that bore my name and my promise. My phone buzzed. A notification from the bank. Alert. Commercial line of credit ending in 9987 has been suspended. I watched the notification fade from the screen. Then I opened my email and drafted a message to the new lender my parents had mentioned. The one with the shady reputation and the aggressive interest rates. I attached the bank confirmation of the frozen account, along with a short note explaining that I had removed myself as guarantor due to breach of contract. Professional courtesy, I told myself. If they were investing based on my credit score, they deserved to know that asset was no longer available. I hit send. After that, I did something I hadn't done in 3 years. I turned off my phone notifications and went back to work. It took exactly 48 hours for the silence to break. I was in my office when the first wave came. My mother calling from a new number. My father trying to reach me through the firm's main line. My younger sister Elizabeth posting a carefully framed video on social media. Tears glistening without ruining her mascara. Talking about toxic family members trying to destroy her light. I didn't engage. I let my assistant Sarah handle the calls. I let the voicemails pile up unheard. I let Elizabeth perform her grief for whatever audience she thought cared. What I did instead was turn on my computer and search the state business database. My parents had mentioned a new investor, a lender, but they'd never mentioned the company name. So I started digging through the old financial records, looking for any reference to a third party that didn't match their stated business partnerships. There. A recurring transfer to something called Blue Heron Holdings LLC. It started 6 months after I'd signed the loan. And it never stopped. I was still staring at the screen when my office phone rang. Jose. He knew something was wrong because I'd finally, after 3 years of lying to protect them, told him the truth. They froze me out, I said when he picked up. Via text. During a client meeting. Do you want me to send a cease and desist? His lawyer brain was already working. Not yet, I said. But I need you to come to the office. I found something. What did you find? I looked at the screen again. The transfers. The dates. The amounts. I found a company, I said. And I don't think they're just bad with money. I think they're hiding it. As I waited for Jose to arrive, I stared out my office window at the city skyline. Somewhere out there, my family was panicking because their credit line had been frozen. Somewhere, my mother was probably making phone calls, playing the victim. Somewhere, my father was probably threatening lawyers he couldn't afford. But I was done listening to the noise. I had turned on the lights. And parasites hate the light. Jose arrived 20 minutes later. He didn't bring wine or takeout. He brought his laptop, a banker's box of legal pads, and the kind of calm that only came from knowing exactly what to do with chaos. That's why I loved him. He sat up across from me at the conference table. Show me, he said simply. I pulled up the state business database and projected the Blue Heron Holdings LLC information onto the smartboard. Then I walked him through the transfers. Every month, varying amounts. $6,000, $12,000, $9,000. Always labeled vaguely. Consulting fees. Site management. Design retainer. Who are they? Jose asked. I don't know yet. I dug into the articles of organization. The registered agent was my mother, Laura. The principal address was a P.O. box 3 hours away. But when I pulled the full filing, the LLC was structured as something else entirely. A pass-through entity for a trust. The Elizabeth Future Trust. They weren't just spending the money, Jose said. His lawyer brain was already 3 steps ahead. They were moving it. I nodded slowly. For 3 years they told me the business was struggling. The market was tough. Contractors were expensive. Interest rates were brutal. They needed my help. They needed me to cover the gaps. And while I was covering the gaps, they were siphoning the money I'd guaranteed into a protected account for my sister. If they default on the commercial line, Jose said carefully, the debt becomes yours. But the assets are protected. They were never going to repay it, I said. The words tasted like ash. They were going to max out the credit line, transfer everything to Blue Heron, file for bankruptcy and walk away, leaving me holding a $250,000 debt. While your sister has a funded trust. While my sister gets to be taken care of for life. The room was very quiet. This is criminal, Jose said. This is fraudulent conveyance. If a bankruptcy trustee saw this. I know, I said. My voice was steady, colder than it had ever been. And they're about to find out that the only thing worse than a forensic accountant for a daughter is a forensic accountant they tried to defraud. I compiled the documents, the articles of organization, the transfer logs, the bank statements, everything labeled, dated, and devastating. Then I picked up my phone and unblocked my father's number. I typed, "Come to my office tomorrow at 10 o'clock. We need to settle this." He replied in 30 seconds. "Glad you finally came to your senses." He had no idea what was waiting for him. They arrived at 9:58 in the morning. Punctuality is easy when you think you're coming to collect a check. I watched them from the mezzanine. My father wore his closer suit, navy with gold cufflinks. My mother had dressed for the role of concerned matriarch in a pastel cardigan. Elizabeth trailed behind them, phone in hand, looking bored, as if salvaging the family fortune was just another errand. They walked into the lobby with a swagger I hadn't seen in years. They thought I'd cracked under the pressure. They thought the silence of the last 48 hours meant I was breaking. They had no idea it meant they were finished. I met them at the reception desk without a smile, without coffee, without any of the rituals that pretend we're a family. "Conference room B," I said. "Follow me." I led them past the open plan desks. I could feel their eyes adjusting to the space, calculating how they looked, how they sounded, what narrative they would tell themselves later about this moment. Jose was already in the boardroom, standing at the head of the table, a stack of files in front of him. My father stopped. "Who is this?" "We don't need lawyers, Sydney. This is family." "This is a settlement meeting," I corrected. "Sit down." They sat. The dynamic shifted immediately. The boardroom was my arena, not theirs. "I assume you're here to unfreeze the credit line," I said, standing while they remained seated, "and accept responsibility for the debt you created." My father leaned back, trying to reclaim the space. "We're here for you to apologize for your tantrum, and to explain how you're going to fix the mess with the lender." I didn't answer. I clicked a key on my laptop. The projector whirred to life. The screen behind me illuminated. Blue Heron Holdings LLC. Registered agent. Laura. Beneficiary. Elizabeth Future Trust. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy. Suffocating. Elizabeth looked up from her phone. Her eyes widened. My mother's face drained of color. My father's jaw worked, but nothing came out. "We know about the transfers," I said. "We know about the shell company. We know you were siphoning the loan principal, my liability, to hide assets before filing for bankruptcy." "That's tax planning," my father stammered, sweat beading on his forehead. "We were protecting the estate for the future." "You were committing fraud," Jose said. His voice was calm, professional, lethal, fraudulent conveyance. moving assets out of a failing business to defraud creditors. Specifically to defraud Sydney. My mother stood up, her voice trembling with that weaponized fragility she'd perfected over decades. We did this for the family. To ensure Elizabeth had security. Sydney has a career. She can handle the debt. Your sister needs support. They started shouting then. All of them. My father yelling about ungrateful daughters. My mother crying about love being twisted. Elizabeth screeching that I was jealous of her trust fund. It was a wall of noise. A panic attack disguised as an argument. And that's when I learned something that changed everything. Power isn't in the noise. It's in the silence. I didn't shout back. I didn't try to explain why stealing from me was wrong. I didn't justify anything. I just watched them. I let their words hit the silence and fall flat. I looked at them not as giants I needed to convince, but as small desperate people who had just realized the locks had been changed. When they finally ran out of breath, I spoke once. Are you done? My father glared. You can't prove any of this. I don't have to prove it to you, I said. I signaled Jose. He slid 3 thick envelopes across the table. This is a formal notice of fraud investigation initiated by the bank, I said. I submitted the evidence this morning. They're very interested in Blue Heron Holdings and the Elizabeth Future Trust. My father picked up the envelope, his hands shaking. And this, I continued, is my formal revocation of the guarantee. The bank accepted it based on evidence of bad faith dealing. The credit line is permanently closed. The debt is entirely yours. Elizabeth whispered, the reality finally breaking through her entitlement. You're sending us to jail. I'm not sending you anywhere, I said. I'm just turning on the lights. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a set of keys. The keys to the project house, the one they'd been living in. The one they were letting rot while they funneled cash into my sister's future. I slid the keys across the mahogany table. They clattered loudly. I'm divesting, I said. The house. The business. The family. I'm out. My mother lunged for my hand, the tears real now, born of terror rather than manipulation. We can fix this. We can put the money back. Please don't leave us like this. I pulled my hand back. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing. No hate. No love. Just the cool detachment of an auditor closing a file on a bad investment. The meeting is over, I said. Jose and I walked out. We didn't look back. 6 months later, I received a notification from the county clerk's office. The foreclosure auction on the project house had been completed. I didn't look up the listing. I didn't check the sale price. I just filed the notification under resolved and moved on. The fraud investigation is slower, but it's moving. The district attorney is very interested in the tax implications of Blue Heron Holdings. My father tried reaching out through a third-party lawyer, offering a settlement if I would retract my statement to the bank. Jose's response was a single sentence. My client has no interest in negotiating with the defendants. As for me, I made senior partner. The firm recognized that someone who can spot a shell company hidden inside a family trust is exactly the kind of auditor they want leading the division. I'm sitting on my balcony now. It's Friday evening. The city lights are blinking on against the twilight. Jose is inside pouring 2 glasses of wine I bought with money that's mine. The apartment is mine. The furniture is mine. Every single thing in my line of sight belongs to me free and clear. There are no liens on my peace of mind. I pick up my phone one last time and navigate to the blocked messages folder. It's a habit I'm trying to break. There are dozens of them. Desperate texts from my mother about family loyalty. Angry rants from my father about ingratitude. Vague, passive-aggressive quotes from Elizabeth about karma. They're still trying to transact in a currency I no longer accept. They want my guilt. They want my anger. They want my engagement. But I'm not buying. I press select all. Then I press delete. The messages vanish. The history is gone. Jose steps out onto the balcony and hands me a glass. He sits beside me, comfortable in the silence. He doesn't ask if I'm okay. He knows I am. For years I thought solvency was just a math problem. Assets exceeding liabilities. If I poured enough money into the black hole of my family's expectations, eventually I would be worthy. But I know now that solvency isn't about money. It's about knowing your value isn't determined by how much you can be used. It's the freedom to walk away from a bad investment without looking back. It's the ability to let people face the consequences of their own choices. My family is bankrupt, not just financially but morally. They spent everything they had, my trust, my love, my loyalty, and they have nothing left to show for it. But me, I'm profitable. I have my integrity. I have my peace. And I have the sound of a closing door that stays closed.